What's up, Manson?
It's cool to do this because we met on LinkedIn because we both nerded out on this ad score metric. And I had a very simple one, like cost per purchase divided by purchases or something. But you had a very advanced metric that you shared. But that's how we met.
Yes, and Manson, also, you know, thanks for sharing the time with me on this call. I'm really happy to have this collaboration. I think it's testament to you also as a founder, building your things. And I think we connected through that topic. And also, I think we connected because we're both building things and we're both like excited about pushing ideas and everything. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And you almost forgot because we actually also connected because we knew someone in common, right? Or we had like a connection in San Francisco.
Crazy
Super random.
story
Yeah.
because my girlfriend used to live with you in, I think it was in Cupertino.
Yeah.
So she walked through my screen and then noticed your name, is like, oh, that name sounds familiar. So I told Sarah that, oh, I'm having a call with Elco, and she's like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Super nice.
Yeah.
Yes. Please say hi also. Yeah. And I think that was really cool also from just how I know her and living with her. And like, I guess SF, I think also like you're quite fortunate to live there. You're in the midst of everything, even during this whole AI time. I guess we're going to come to that topic later as well. Yeah, I had a great time there. It's really special. And not to say that I don't like Berlin, because Berlin also is really special in a different way. It's a crazy city actually, but more in a human way, right? So you have a lot of like interesting experiences here, open-mindedness. The city is really engaging, really fun. People are really developing themselves on a social level, I think in a more meaningful way than a lot of much more career and goal-oriented cities. But what is it? The knife always cuts on two sides, or there's always two sides to a story. That's also the part, of course, why we are here, and also a part that I really love. And I think just to say
Yeah,
that I love my time in San Francisco as well.
I love it. There's definitely a lot of AI stuff going on here. I've been to a couple conferences early on. I really love it. I'm curious, how long have you been in paid social? How did you start?
Okay, so for me, it's actually really simple. It was a case of me coming out of uni. And as I came out of uni, my friends all started to work for Rocket Internet. And as they are getting internships in Rocket Internet, I also landed myself like a kind of internship, and it was for the venture called HelloFresh. And so we were building that in the Netherlands, and it's like such a cool memory, even though it was just a few months, but it was like you have this ex-consultant, ex-investment banker, ex-Google guy, and we're like in a warehouse packing chicken in a box. You know what I mean? And like
Okay.
building this
Yeah.
company up on a spreadsheet. It was really raw. We were only with like a handful of people, but it was really cool because you could see the fast growth and you could see how everything developed. And then from HelloFresh, I basically went to do a startup in London. I was a co-founder for that. And that was called Epicurely. Afterwards, it was called Melba. I even met my co-founder back then, which is this super smart, Harvard educated, what is it, libertarian, very interesting kind of person who is still a client of mine today as well. But we met there through the startup, and then from there, when the startup didn't go well, like after 1 year, I started work for myself. And initially I called myself like a growth hacker. And from one day to another, I just changed my status on LinkedIn. I said growth hacker. I put my face into like a bright yellow background. What a lot of people do today, but it was a little bit cooler, I must say. But it was just like, bam, on LinkedIn. And then I got a call from the person that was my first client in the startup, the Melba one. And he's like, I need someone to help with marketing. Can you help? And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And as I did that, I was like, growth, doing all kinds of stuff. But as I was doing it, I also realized that if you do everything, unless you have a team, you can do very little. And the thing that I was doing that was making the most impact for that company was doing Facebook ads. And that was my first experience with it. And then more customers started asking for services. And at some point, I made the step to change my name on LinkedIn from growth hacker, which sounded very cool, to advertiser, which at the time for me was almost a bit dirty because it felt so narrow. I don't know, it sounds much cooler. But it was like the best thing I ever did, because afterwards the assignments flew in, so it was like overloaded with work. Like I think Facebook was going through like this boom where every startup just you put money on Facebook and it just explodes. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got started in paid social. And then from there, I built my agency, but I will let you talk now because I've been chatting
Oh
pretty well.
man, I love that.
What about you?
I love it, man. I didn't know that you had that start, so it's cool to hear your origin story.
Yeah.
But yeah, after college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, actually. So I was an assistant in a real estate company. I joined a database consulting company. Then I got super bored there. I started reading copywriting books. And that's how I got into advertising, was reading Ogilvy and all these like classic advertising books because I always wondered, why do people buy things that they don't really need? Then I quit and I was an affiliate marketer for a little bit. And so making landing pages, doing all the track, learned a lot, but also lost a lot of money, which is totally fine, taking risk as when you're younger. Then I joined a Facebook marketing partner. So that's where I started working with companies like I think realtor.com and Starwood and those kind of companies. And yeah, that's how I got started managing these accounts for them. And yeah, the aha moment was just that, like, why do ads even work?
Did you learn
So
that like right away or later at Cash App?
I learned that a little bit earlier than Cash App. I think I learned that the most when I was at Calm during COVID because I really felt like I was making the world a better place and I was writing scripts that I put a lot of empathy into that, hey man, if you're real bad, try meditating because it helped me a lot in my mental health journey. I feel like at Calm is where I learned how to work the magic a little bit, how to practice copywriting and how to engaging ads.
I think you're really lucky because you have worked for some of the coolest brands, first off. And I think that, okay, two things to say about it, which is that one is a critical question, not a critical question, it's a real question. It's a challenging question, if I can, may I?
Yeah.
So I would argue that meditation and mindfulness has gone through this like huge boom, right? And that I think that happens with the arrival of technology. Technology we have in our lives, the more mentally, emotionally depleted we feel, the more we need to find inner peace and calm and, what have you.
Yeah. That is a very good question. You can't have ads that work if your product sucks.
Yeah,
Calm had a great product. We had a great brand. We had some of
100%.
the best brand marketers and product people and data people. But I would imagine that the scripts that I wrote or ads that we created wouldn't have worked as well if our brand wasn't strong. Because if our product was poor, then our LTV CAC was going to be bad. LTV is going to be low, CAC's going to be high, retention is going to be horrible. So that will throw off our LTV CAC projections. That wouldn't have allowed us to scale our ad spend to where it was. So yeah, that's a great question. How do you feel about brand versus performance marketing, or do you have thoughts about this?
The thing is that these are two different business units usually, or two different groups of people almost, and they have slightly different objectives. There's a chance that a lot of times what they want cannot be achieved at the same time. I mean, that's just the reality. So then it's like, I think my point of view is we always ask this to clients when we start working with them, actually before we start a campaign. So at a ratio of improving CPA at all costs versus keeping brand intact, where do you sit on a scale from 1 to 10, Because if you want to stay 100% on brand, your performance marketing is going to suffer. If you're going to go 100% for performance, your brand is going to suffer. And so I think one should assume that both people holding those functions are going to maximize their utility, trying to get the most. So both of them on an individual basis cannot make the decision. It is up for someone that sits higher up to make the call what has the priority. And then what we see typically is that if you go from until Series A, it's CPA almost at all costs. A lot of times, not always, but it's like often CEOs will say, shit happened to me like 1 month ago. I was on a call with a CEO also, and he was like, guys, do whatever you want, get CPA, I don't care. So you can say anything as long as you don't. We were like, can we also include other brands in ads? Because sometimes when you like reference another brand, then you can also kind of benefit from their fame, right? And he's like, okay, do whatever you want, as long as you don't talk about Disney, because Disney sues everyone. So Disney, you have to avoid. It's a good, good thing to know. And
Yeah.
apparently Disney almost like invented copyright law because like of what's written in the US. So their lawyers are like really good and they establish a lot of the rules on how it works legally today. I think the CEOs that are building something and the companies that build some of a product that is still more in earlier stages, I would say around Series A, they often prioritize more results because this can help them reach their fundraising goals and get them to the next stage. Whereas like companies that are a bit more mature will really prioritize brands because that's how they can win more customers globally in the long term. Because in the end, the thing that scales is trust, right? So it's all about like short-term and long-term gains. I would say that some founders and CEOs are much more brand sensitive from the beginning because they also understand that it's a long journey. And if they feel confident they can raise all the money, then they will invest heavily on brand from the early days. My point of view on it is if I had my own company, I would probably, if I financially felt confident enough, I would probably also do that. Because like you said, if you have a great product, a great brand, people will buy into you, right? So I think that's how you can win a lot. But I say it with a caveat because as a performance marketer, I know that the best ads are often not the ones that follow brand guidelines. So in that line of reasoning, I would try to put down a strong brand, but at the same time, give some space, funky things until you feel that legally and where you're at your stage of growth, that is just not done anymore. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, man, that's a great one. I think there's this eternal battle between brand and performance marketing teams because the goals are kind of opposed to each other. Performance marketing is based on short-term results, brand is based on long-term results. It's a bit harder to measure as well, brand marketing. But I think some of the tests that we've run, performance marketing does drive some brand lift, and sometimes it drives positive lift. I mean, I've seen Curology run the most insane visual hooks in their ads, and their brand's great. Like visual hooks, like a marshmallow being burnt in reverse. Like nothing to do with Curology.
I
It's just
know
to capture
some
attention.
companies are really, they dare to do these kind of things, right? They know how
Yeah,
performance marketing is different from what you do regularly as a brand.
but
Sorry
yeah, I
to
think
jump in.
Curology's cool at that. But as a founder, I'm starting to understand more about brand and long-term goals, like putting my face out there because like you mentioned, trust scales. So especially now, it seems like the industry is heading toward a lot of personalization at scale with AI and things like that. But I think what the counterbalance to that is people leaning more toward authenticity and trust and personality led growth or whatever. But yeah, that's why I'm investing a lot of time and energy into being better at video. In the last 30 days, I was practicing being in front of my camera. I would record a 2-minute video 3 times, and I would make sure to look at the camera, no ums, uhs, or likes, and try to be more animated just so that I can get ahead of this wave for marketing.
But man, what you just told me that you got like 180,000 impressions on a LinkedIn video,
Yeah.
that's effing insane, man. It's paying off, right? So you're doing the right thing. That's awesome.
But yeah, it's paying off. So I don't know. It's interesting where the industry is gonna head. Do you, do you think that all this stuff will help or hurt, or where do you see it affecting our industry?
On AI, right? Okay. My theory on AI is the following, is that like when I was a
Yeah.
student in uni, I saw this video. It was like a McKinsey video, and they invited Ray Kurzweil. And Ray Kurzweil was explaining this thing, and he said that for humans, it is very easy to think linearly, but it's very hard to think exponentially. Like our mind can just not comprehend that. The number of transistors, the integrated circuit is doubling every year or so. That is causing us to make such leaps in information technology. And we can just not comprehend how much change is going to happen. And that, you know, linking it to Moore's law and whether you believe in Moore's law or not, there's these charts where you can see almost like a straight curve going from left to right in terms of the price of compute in the world and how fast information technology is progressing. And he was giving an example, which I really loved, which is that he said, you know, the entire NASA space station that sent a rocket to the moon was like 10,000 times less powerful in computing power than your mobile phone today. And many years ago,
Late 1960s.
yeah, okay, exactly. So that's like what? That's like 40, 60, let's say 60 years, 6, 70 years, doesn't matter. But like in 60 to 70 years from now, we're going to do the same thing in terms of growth, but we're going to do it exponentially. And I think that's a really insane thing to think about. If you think that like that phone that is now more powerful than that NASA station that sent a rocket to the moon, and that leap was like going from step to two, and then in 60 years, we're going to go from step two to like whatever, 70,000 or something, or some insane number, right? And I think that's something that's very hard for us to comprehend. And because of that, we really cannot see how AI is going to affect us and what's going to happen. What we see now is just the beginning of it. But what I think will happen, that's very clear to me, is that like these are things that I can say, I feel confident to say are like facts, is that with so much computing power becoming available, with us becoming so much more able to do things at a cheaper cost of compute, what's going to happen is that we can just do so many more actions as an individual than what we could do in the past. So because of that, what's going to happen in our industry, and it took me a really long way to get here, but it means that the supply of information is going to go up a lot because, in the same way that you like pushed out so many videos or you're like testing all these videos and trying things, it's so much easier now than it was like 2 years ago or 5 years ago, right? And it will only become easier and easier. And so, soon you can just put out like thousands of video per week, it won't be hard anymore. We're only humans and we have biological limits on how much information we can consume. We're going to become more selective. And I think this is what we already see, like the phenomenon where we have to deal with an information overload and we decide to ignore most of it. It's not anymore that you have time to organize everything perfectly. It's more like there's going to be a vast amount of data points coming at you and you just pick the ones that you like. This is the new kind of way of how it's going to be. And because of that, if you live in a world where the default is people are not going to listen to you, it makes every one of us who wants to get their message out much more competitive and much more, you need to try much harder to actually, for someone to select your message out of these thousands of messages, right? So I think this is like the premise of what's going to happen. And then what I think that will happen is that we're going to go time where all of us will be much more enabled to put a lot more content out, advertise much better, tell a much better story. But at the same time, the receiver is also much more selective, has much higher standards, and simply will press skip when they're not interested. And I think that's going to create a situation that is leading to a world which is becoming more exponential in a way that you already see this on all the channels. There are a few people that will have extreme success, and there's a long tail of people who won't have so much success. So for me, in this world, the spoils or the views or let's say the winnings is not equally distributed. In fact, I think if you think about how success and fame and likes will be distributed, I think the curve is going to become steeper and steeper. And I think it will become a more competitive world because of this.
Yeah, I agree. I think content is gonna be so much more easier to create, especially now with create your own AI twin or clone your voice. And I think people will be able to better discern whether that's AI or not. Hopefully, I don't know if we'll get to where we won't be able to tell what's real or not until we take off the VR goggles and go out on a walk in nature. But yeah, I think what will set people apart, especially for founders and marketers, is no one can be yourself. You can be the best that you can be. So if you try to be someone else, then that's not going to work for you. And I
100%,
think
I agree.
people love the authenticity. They want to relate to you. So I think that's a good strategy to have when AI content is going to be so prevalent. And we're already seeing it on social media. Fake LinkedIn comments, AI generated LinkedIn posts. People are already tuning that out. So by all means, you can use AI to help with content creation. Like when I record YouTube videos, I just take that transcript and I paste it into ChatGPT to write a blog post. So in that way, it's adding to the text supply, but it's more authentic that way, I think. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, no, I love this part where you mentioned that it's about being yourself and being authentic. I think it's very true. This guy from R2, do you know this person?
Yeah,
Yeah,
our B2B.
you recommended him to me actually. I just
Oh,
realized.
yeah.
Okay, he said something that I loved actually. He said like, okay, there's only one you. No one has your like unique set of experiences. And so like just learn how to tell your story and also try to find non-linear ways to cut through the noise because everyone's trying to get attention. And also think about like what are you willing to do that no one is willing to do, right? And I did these things quite, they spoke to me, you know? And so it's about like all of these things and then doing that in an authentic way, right? If you do things in a way that is, I don't know, kind of fake, then people see through it and they don't empathize with you, right? So I love that.
Yeah. I think I had to learn this. This was a hard lesson that I had to learn is doing things that felt inauthentic to me, but I was doing it because it felt like I had to do it. Things like cold email or, jumping on trends. One hard lesson that I've had to, it's kind of a, not the best segue, but once you're able to acquire users, for me, my challenge right now is how do I make onboarding great? How can I decrease the time to value so that the trial to subscribe rate for my free trial goes up? That's something that I've had to learn to do because as a performance marketer, I was acquisition, 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 and let lifecycle marketing handle all the retention and activation and onboarding.
To wear multiple
But
hats
yeah,
now.
this kind of goes back yeah, this goes back to the brand versus performance marketing topic we had earlier. But I think I lean too heavily into the acquisition piece and not so much on the retention piece. So now I'm focusing a lot more on being hands-on with retention, doing onboarding, training sessions. This is helping so far. I'm still very early days in Sovereign, but I'm sure there's so many more hard lessons that I will learn, but mistakes I'm making right now that I'm not really realizing yet.
Ah, come on, you're great. I'm sure it's gonna play
Thanks.
itself out.
Thanks.
And it reminds me also that I need to start testing your app. Actually, I haven't even tested it so much yet. That's a good reminder.
Try it. I think it will help.
Yeah, definitely. I think like we have all these capabilities in house, so we have everything to do it in a way that's maybe how you would do it before your app existed, right? But I think we need to see how it can assist us to speed up some processes, right? That usually maybe not go so fast and just be able to like run more options with things, with hooks or what have you.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
something like,
Oh no.
is there something within your product, like a use case, which can be an easy, low-hanging kind of helper that how people can start? For example, I don't know, with our product, actually, we're trying to build this data tagging software where all the ad creatives are tagged so that you have more insights when the data from Meta and TikTok, etc., comes back so that you know what to optimize for or what to double down on your creative strategy. And we kind of copy, there's one company in our domain called Creative X, and they have done this more at scale and for larger brands and what have you. But the way they started was they had a product where the product was just seeing if your ad content adheres to logo guidelines or whatever. Is the logo in the right place, right? But that was like a mini product, how they could get their foot in the door with the bigger brand. So what I'm wondering is like, do you have like a mini product that is like, instead of making the full suite of videos that people should hear about?
Yeah, thank you. So this one feature I absolutely love because if we think about video ads now and there being an exponential rise in video ad content, is you need to optimize for the first couple seconds of attention. It can help you create dozens of hook variations at a time that you can then stitch onto your core body videos. So you can upload visual hooks and then you can apply multiple text overlays onto them. So then you can kind of explode the amount of hook variations you're testing. So if you have core body videos that you know work, whether they're like classic problem agitate solution, sales sequences, or listicles or whatever, you can just start testing a ton of hooks, because some people say creative is the new targeting, and I agree, but I think what's really doing most of the targeting is that first couple seconds. What pain point are you hitting? Who's showing up in that
100%.
visual? And then on Meta, the average view duration is around 6 seconds. That first couple seconds is so important. So as a performance marketer, focusing on that is where the 80/20 is.
I love that. So it's basically people should start using Sovereign, me included, for being able to push out more hook variations faster so that more can be tested. So there's a quick like performance uplift by
Yeah.
testing different variations of opening hook.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you had any hard lessons that you've had to learn in your time as an agency?
I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of
I'd
lessons?
say, how about this is something that introspectively, has there been times this light bulb moment happens to you where it takes you to a next level of business? Because there was one example where you mentioned a team can do more than just me, myself. Has there been other light bulb moments in business where you were able to be like just 10x more effective or efficient, or took your business to the next level?
Yes, I would say 3. So the first one is the success we saw with making native looking content. Insane results. Never seen anything like it in my life. At the time, was on a £250,000 marketing budget, but like tripling the results, just because we made memes for this client, right? So like the meme was so much more effective than the regular ad, right? Like 3 times. And then you see how much money you're saving for the company, and then it was like, wow. And I think now it's a very common concept. You see like Barry Hot, like make ugly ads, and you see all these like known people basically saying the same, Alex Cooper, da. But I think that was also for me in 2019 that became really apparent, Don't make branded stuff, make really things that fits into the feed, that looks organic, because then it will blow up, as an ad. 1. 2, nothing works when you don't have processes and systems. That's something that people say from day one, but you never believe it until you have a good process and system, and then you understand why.
Yeah.
I think that what I really looked for is people who are T-shaped, but are really outliers in this one thing. I'm very okay if they're not T-shaped, but they're like L-shaped, or, they miss some of the base, you know what I mean? So like, maybe they're just I-shaped. I think it's very important because some people will understand the domain like they're like the 1%, the 1% of the 1% in the world. And then it matters less that they don't know the other things that well. It's much more important to find people that can do something that no one else can, so that whatever you create as a product is going to be exceptional. You just pay a higher price for getting there, because maybe these people are not so easy to work with, or there's like other problems of the machine won't work as well because it doesn't run so smoothly, but they can give you that extra. So I would always say you got to double down on that.
Yeah. Man, those are great lessons.
Thank you.
Insights that you have.
I appreciate it. I'm sure with all your experience and those cool companies like Calm and Cash App. Fun fact, we always used to look at Cash App's ads for many of the clients. We always looked up to them a lot because we thought they were like the best in the fintech business. So we looked at your work and we're like, damn, man. A part of your work, but like.
Well, yeah, part of my work also had a great brand team.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Tons of lessons as well. Yeah, sounds good. Well, I just want to say, yeah, thanks a lot for having me and for chatting with me. It was really a lot of fun. I would say like, yeah, what you're building is really dope. I think it's amazing and you got to keep going. I feel like the thing which I love about what we're doing, because we're both in a somewhat similar space and stage of our development, is that because we're really motivated to build this one thing, we're willing to go a bit of in the extra mile in terms of other things, like whatever, putting ourselves out there on LinkedIn is like a silly example. But I feel like it's also so exciting, because you have to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's awesome that you're doing it. And I hope to meet more people like you and like us that can
Yeah,
help
thank you,
us
man.
and inspire us.
As the business owner, and you have your own tech solution too, which I took a peek at. It's super dope. Yeah, it's hard. It takes a lot of time, but I can't really imagine myself doing anything else, myself
Same.
and really like, what can I personally achieve? What can I do? It it keeps me going, and especially when I get good testimonials, then I'm like, oh my God, this makes it all worth it. When you're demoing the product and someone's like, oh, this is perfect. This is just for me.
Completely agree.
Thanks, Elco.
Right.
Bye.
Peace.